What is going on, guys? I am BlackOpsAmazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel where today we are looking at the story of the Crusader zombies. As always, if you enjoy a massive like rating, a thumbs up on the video would be very much appreciated. Just a friendly reminder to make sure that you are subscribed if you want to stay up to date with all the videos on the channel. And without further ado, when you're ready, let's do this. Now, in Origins, we had two new types of zombies. This was the Crusader and the Templar. And of course, besides from this, we also have the normal zombies. But what I want to do in this video is give you the story on not only the Crusader zombie, but also the Templar zombie, as they both fit in together. So let's take a look at their origin. Let's see what their backstory is. Well, in the beginning, there was only the Ether and the Keepers. As we know, among them were two humans known as Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man. And everything was peaceful. Dr. Monty and the Shadow Man were friends, the Keepers were getting along, the Ether was fine, everything was good. But soon enough, some of the Keepers began to experiment with something called the Dark Ether, a small part of the Ether that had begun to become corrupted. The Keepers began to experiment with this, and soon enough, the Dark Ether began to corrupt and corrode the Keepers' souls. It began to infect some of the Keepers, but not only them, it also infected the mind of the Shadow Man, turning him and the Keepers evil. And because of this, the War of Argotha begins. A war breaks out between the corrupted and uncorrupted Keepers. But as time goes by and this war rages on between the good and bad Keepers, eventually the evil are defeated, and the corrupted Keepers are banished to the Dark Ether beneath creation. Though whilst trapped in the Dark Ether, over time, the corrupted Keepers begin to contort. They begin to evolve, and over eons, eventually, they turn into the Apothicons, resembling nothing of their former Keeper selves. They look totally different, with tentacles, 3 heads. These corrupted Keepers had become the Apothicons, though still trapped in the Dark Ether. Knowing that the planet had a gateway to Argotha, the Apothicons sent meteors of element 115 to Earth, where they believed that one day humanity will use this element to wage war amongst themselves, opening a rift that would allow the Apothicons to escape the Dark Ether. And soon enough, during the Middle Ages or the medieval period down on Earth, in 1292, humanity discovered element 115. And they began to mess around with it. This then opened up a rift and the Apothicons began to invade. And so on January the 15th, the Great War between humanity and the Apothicons began. Many people fought in this Great War against the Apothicons, including knights. As we see on the wall in Shadows of Evil, which is a stone carving of the Great Battle, you can see Templar knights fighting against the Apothicons. They're fighting alongside the Keepers and Primus. By the way, this is the coloured version, credit to Glitching Queen who did this. But you can see these Templar knights fought in the Great War. Not only them, but also Crusaders. Crusaders were fighters during the medieval period, the medieval crusade. And you can see on their chest, or specifically on the Templar's chest, what very closely resembles a keeper is branded on their clothing. Obviously, they're also wearing chainmail and armor, which you would wear during the 12th or 13th century. But anyway, getting back to the story, so the Crusaders and Templars fought alongside the Keepers and Primus during the Great War. They fought to defeat the Apothicons. And finally, on December 31st of 1299, 7 years later, the Apothicons are defeated and the Great War comes to an end. As we know, after this, before Primus disappeared, they told the Wolf King to begin building the castle of Der Eisendrache. Once the Great War is over, Pablo began documenting everything he had seen in the Great War. He wrote down in his journal everything he learned about the Keepers, the Apothicons, and Element 115. And he noted in this journal on February the 18th of 1300 that a site in northern France contained a massive deposit of Element 115. And then, as we know, after writing this, Pablo lost his journal, only to be found again later on by Richthofen. But also on June 4th of 1300, a few months after the Great War had ended, in northern France, a tomb was constructed to honour the fallen soldiers of the Great War. Those who had fought to save humanity and defeat the Apothicons, the Knights, the Templars, the Crusaders. A tomb was built for them in northern France, and the dead soldiers were buried there. Also within it were the statues of Primus. They were constructed to symbolise the hope that if one day a great evil falls upon mankind, they may return. So these Crusader zombies who fought in the Great War were buried at the site in northern France. This tomb was built to honour them, and they were buried here. And once buried, this tomb was locked up, sealed, and never to be opened again. That was until Group 935 came along in 1917. Hundreds of years later, Richtofen discovered Pablo's journal, and using information from it, Group 935 begins work at the dig site in northern France. They begin to dig the site up, where they discover a series of underground tombs, and soon enough they discover the entrance to the tomb's main chamber. Buried inside of this chamber were the dead and fallen Crusaders. Unable to access this main chamber though, the soldiers who were digging it up began to listen to a gramophone. To alleviate their frustration, they began listening to a recording of La Source Noire, and upon doing so, the entrance to the main chamber unexpectedly opens, and the camp's exposure to Element 115 begins, also exposing it to the dead Crusaders and bringing them back to life. These fallen soldiers, buried in this tomb for hundreds of years, now became the undead, and soon enough began to invade the dig site. These undead knights of the Great War began to kill members of Group 935. Those are the Crusader zombies. As we know, like I said earlier, we also have the Templar zombies. They come out of the generators that Group 935 installed. They will try to shut them down, but the main place we find them is the Crazy Place. And as we know, the Crazy Place is a gateway to Argotha. So because we have a Keeper symbol on their chest, are they somehow related to the Keepers? Are they a manifestation of the Keeper? Are they a Keeper in a different form? I mean, the Primus heroes have these Keeper tunics on their chest as well, so are these classed as Keepers? I'm not sure. However, that is the story of the Templar and Crusader zombies, dead knights who fought in the Great War, buried for years but unearthed by Group 935. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, a like rating as always would be very much appreciated. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Let me know what you want to see next in the comment section below, and of course I will see you all in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.